Behold, it's Natalia. Let's go find some monkeys, shall we?
Did you say sex is like riding a bicycle?
Nothing gets me going like Christmas and wigs. Let's check out this show.
I remember the first creature I beheld. He was a squirrel. His name was Kevin.
I heard you need a DNA sample.
I want to find light and joy in things that bring us together and unite us. And I think science is something that can unite us. Ow. God damn.
There's a world out there, a world that needs to be beheld.
Behold, welcome back to another episode of Survival of the Filthiest. I'm your host, anthropologist, comedian, weirdo, and kidney stone passer. Yes, I passed those kidney stones, Natalia Reagan, I think. I passed both of them. But I created this show because the world is on fire. We are living in a fascist regime, and what the futz are we going to do? So, we've got a war on healthcare, people of color, gays, bays, jetways, veterans, queers, engineers, the vax, paperbacks, teachers, creatures, women, and sex. Yep, I said sex. We'll get to that in a moment. But what better way to resist than to talk to scientists, comedians, activists, educators about creating some really good trouble to move this country and the world forward rather than 5,876 steps back. And here's a quick reminder, because I always forget to do this, that if you like this, if you enjoy this, please like, subscribe, share, watch as many times as you want. And if you want to support this illustrious production, you can join my Patreon. It is fun. It will be fun. It's going to be more fun when I get more people because I can do more things. And today we're going to be talking about purity culture. Do you even know what purity culture is? I'm still learning, and that's why today's guest is going to be so helpful for me. But let's get to my slideshow. Thank you, Peter. And please, a shout out to my producer, Peter de Tucker in the Netherlands. I lecker him a lot. Okay, so we're talking to Lacey Bond today. She is a certified sex and relationships coach, but we're also talking about purity culture. And that represents the cherry that I have lost so many moons ago. We won't go into Lake Havasu, 1995. Sorry, Mom. Okay, moving on. But purity culture, essentially, it's funny because it sounds like it's been around forever, but it actually really kind of came to power in the early 1990s into the 2000s. And it really refers to white American Evangelical Christian Purity Movement launched in the early 1990s. It is rooted in strict Western ideas of gender norms and remaining chaste until marriage. That ship has sailed. Clothing, behavior, thoughts are closely monitored and judged. Sex and masturbation, especially for young women, are seen as shameful and forbidden acts to completely avoid. And basically you've got folks here, and who controls the purity, by the way, is a young woman's father. Yep. And this is a powerful way to protect your daughter's purity by strong Catholic dad. It's a little terrifying. And you even have things like, here, hold on. This is again live entertainment, so there's going to be clunkiness. They even have purity balls. Yeah, which sounds like it's some sort of detergent ball. It's not. It's where you go to a dance. It's like a daddy-daughter dance, but a lot creepier. And you even take pictures like you're going to homecoming. Yeah, but nobody's coming at this homecoming, that's for sure. And you look at this, it looks like like Midsummer meets The Handmaid's Tale, but in white. It's terrifying. Jesus is the DJ. Look at this. I love the oil rig in the background, folks. And then the military men are even getting into it on sand dunes. I don't know. It's all sorts of creepy. Check out this. This is great. Is there a wedding, or is it a purity ball? It is definitely a purity ball. Papa does preach, and he preaches to keep your legs closed, and we don't need to hear that. I'll tell you that much. What do we got next? Oh yeah, what does it remind you of? Maybe this guy. Maybe it reminds you of that. I don't know about you. And then here we have Speaker of the House Mike Johnson in 2015 signing a purity contract with his daughter. I hope she wasn't an Epstein informant too, Mike Johnson. Oh, dear Lord. But yeah, and here is a young woman getting married with her proof of virginity. Ah, this is insane. I don't understand how this can happen. But yes, and the dad wasn't, there was so much backlash when this picture was posted, and the dad was like, I don't understand. It's just, proof that, the cow's milk has not been spoiled, or whatever that phrase goes. But yes, and if a dad really wants to show how dedicated he is, he can make it official and put a ring on it. Yes, there are purity rings where fathers will get down on one knee and propose their, I guess, protection and their daughter's purity in these proposals. It is wild. So, yeah, what is a purity? Essentially, an engraved ring that ensures that their daughter will stay chaste and keep their body pure until they decide they can go off and get married. Yeah, it is bonkers, folks. Sometimes I wonder, though, does Jesus get jealous? Like I'm thinking like Jesus is supposed to be the main guy, and then all of a sudden dad steps in. I mean, is it like this? Is it like this? I feel like it could be like this, where Jesus is like, yo, man, like you're supposed to be dedicated to me and you're all up in your dad's crap. I don't know. I'm thinking maybe. But have I mentioned that agriculture ruined everything? The Neolithic revolution is when humans put down roots. And that was basically when these very strict Western idea of gender norms came into play, where women are essentially property. Daughters are property to be sold off, to work on farms, to, yeah, make life more prosperous for the men. So yeah, the patriarchy and the plow is not. So we're still living it. It's 2025. This was 12,000 years ago, folks. So, yeah, and I had my own little version of this. Oh, yeah, and this is a fun fact. Women are opting out of marriage because of such things. We're just like, yeah, we're not going to do this anymore. We're not down for this game. And just so you know, purity culture and rape culture, there's a lot of overlap. This idea of victim shaming, a lot of shame around sex, a lot of shame around the victim. What were you wearing? You need to be wearing this, these strict gender norms. There's a lot of overlap here, and this is why we need to talk about this and hopefully dismantle this idea of women have to remain a certain way in order to be, I don't know, respected in the world we walk in. My own experience with purity culture, this is me in sleepaway camp. It was called Forest Home here in California, and we were not allowed to wear bikinis. And I went to a church here in the San Fernando Valley that was very liberal. We all wore string bikinis. Are you kidding? This was the 90s. We didn't care. And we get to this camp, and they're like, "Yeah, you have to cover up because your half naked body will distract the boys away from God." And I remember thinking, God must be such a weak son of a gun if I'm the distraction, I'm gonna be the one that pulls you away from God. Okay. But yes, and they had us actually do mud day, and this is me rolling around in the mud, not in a swimsuit, because God forbid. I do understand a little bit that might really do distract the boys from God. The mud wrestling was a bit much. Anyways, there's a lot of shame for those that are in purity culture, and leaving is oftentimes very, very hard. Hold on, let me find my notes. This is the part where I'm like, yes, this is live. There we go. Oh, yeah. So those have left the religion and purity culture behind. There's oftentimes wrestling with shame and the trauma that they experience. And so I'm very excited because today's guest was in purity culture, survived it, and now is thriving in such an amazing way post purity culture. And she now helps others do the same. And so I'm going to read a little bit about my guest, Lacey Bond, or Intimacy Lacey on social media, is a certified sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, sex and kink educator based in Los Angeles. She's dedicated to helping people heal, or she likes to say, unfuck themselves from purity culture, growing healthy relationships with other people, and developing awesome shame-free sexuality. Yes, Lacey lived the quintessential purity culture experience, raised an evangelical church and youth group, Bible study, and Christian school, graduated from Biola University, and featured in the 2015 documentary, Give Me Sex, Jesus. And she's here to tell you that all of us can unfuck ourselves from it. You can find Lacey on Instagram and TikTok. We're going to have the links in the chat. So please, please follow her. And if you went through this and need help, talk to her. She's amazing. And she's also just a fabulous human being. So people of the internet, please welcome the amazing Lacey Bond. Oh my God. You look amazing. Uh-oh, I can't hear you.
Hello, internet. I know how to be on a webcam.
You're beguiling in blue. I love it.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. No,
That was
seriously.
an amazing intro. Thank you.
Well, I've been a fan of yours. So I can tell the internet real quick how we met. Turkish bathhouse. No, we met on the Warner Brothers strike line,
You were
and
a banana.
I was a banana, and you were a babe and banana. No, but you were interviewing people. You were photographing. You were photographing people. You were filming bananas, doing banana dances. You were making appealing content.
I did. I covered the 2023 SAG-AFTRA strike against the AMPTP, and I just kept seeing you at different places. I think you did like a Barbarella cosplay on one of the lines, and you had like, you might have had a bubble machine, or you might have just standing next to the bubble lady. There were so many things happening on all of those picket lines, and you were a huge part of like morale, like the camaraderie and like community from the strikes. Like I'm not in the union. I'm not a SAG-AFTRA member. I'm just a labor bro, a comrade, one might say.
Honorary.
So what's that?
You're an honorary one now.
Pretty much. People think I'm in the union because I was talking about it so much, but I'm like, well, actually, I live in Los Angeles, and like a quarter of our jobs are in the film industry. This is kind of a big deal. I want us to have an economy, please.
And how's that worked out for us lately?
Anyway.
No, I know. And scene. No, but so you've been working to cover it, as you know, and that, but I didn't know at that point that you also were a certified sex and relationship coach, that you had been in purity culture, that you had left it. So I would love to hear your story, as much as you would like to share, about how was purity culture? How did that happen? And how was the escape?
Yeah, that was a time. Purity culture is a hell of a drug. Christianity is a hell of a drug. I am what is known colloquially as a cradle Christian, or I was. I have since left the faith. You can absolutely leave purity culture while remaining in the faith and deconstructing, reconstructing it. But I was raised in the Evangelical Church. I was born in 1990, just a few years before Richard Ross founded the True Love Waits campaign. He's still in ministry, by the way. Old pastor man from Florida who decided he should be the thought police about lustful teenagers daring to have a natural human sex drive. But I grew up in the church. Sunday school, preschool, like my entire education, with the exception of a couple of homeschool plus community college years, was Christian. I attended Biola University, like you said. That's big Christian. Well, big. It is one of the more prominent Christian colleges here, and it's here in Southern California. It's comparable universities are Liberty University and Bob Jones. Those are the three most conservative. I don't recall if they had this specific rule when I went there, but for a long time, women couldn't wear spaghetti straps. This school is in Southern California.
Wow.
So a rule we did have when I was there was that to the gym, people will do like that deep cut tank top thing where like the sleeve goes down to here so they can work out and sweat. Girls couldn't do that. The boys, I think, could. Yeah. We had a dress code. There's a contract at Biola that you sign saying that you will do no sex. You will do no extramarital sex, no drugs, no alcohol. If you're married, it's allowed. Well, the sex is. The other two, not so much. And I think off campus, like if you were home for the holidays, maybe, but like the Biola contract was, and it was also a purity pledge. And I never signed a purity pledge or went to a purity ball, but I did have two different purity rings. The first one was given to me by my mom when I was around 10, perhaps. younger than I
Wow.
was when I like actually had any idea of what sex was. So like
So you didn't even know what it
the
was.
no, I didn't have any idea what it was when I was 10. Like definitely like as a child, like all children explore their bodies. Humans are sexual creatures, and that looks different at every single stage. Minors and their sexuality is a whole area that I'm not specialized in, but I think, as you know, as a biologist, anthropologist, is as a scientist, like humans are just sexual, and like 1%
Yeah.
of us are asexual, and that's fine. And it should be talked about more. And one of my bugbears about kink that we'll get into, kink and BDSM, there's actually like plenty of asexual people in that space because it's more about like the play and the power dynamics and the structure than it is about the sex. It's just that 99% of humans are allosexual, meaning they have a libido and they like having sex. So when you put play together with being an adult, you're probably going to do one of the funnest, most pleasurable activities that most adults enjoy doing. But you know, like as a child, I explored my body in a few ways that like I think like I got noticed and talked to about in a like don't mm-mm. So the narrative around sexuality and the body was generally very repressive and shame based. From like it goes along with this like you are a pure flower and you don't want to be like defiled or dirtied or like have someone mess with you emotionally, because there's a huge tie between having sex and becoming emotionally damaged in that culture, as well as, you know, if you have sex you are impure. um, and we had so many there are so many metaphors about being impure, like a common one is like a chewed up piece of gum. No one chews the same piece of gum twice. Or one youth pastor when I was in middle or early high school, they glued two pieces of like colored construction paper together to illustrate like, you know, this is what you're doing when you're like sleeping with someone, and then they like tore them apart and they're like, these are like the pieces that get like
Oh my
stuck
God.
to the other person of like your heart and your soul. So it's this big conflation of like your emotions, your heart, your sexuality, the act of sex. And those things are definitely tied together. Like you do develop emotional connections with people usually when you're sleeping with them, but they make it into this huge thing and basically promise that, but if you wait until you get married, because you're only supposed to have sex in this covenantal biblical marriage between a cisgendered heterosexual man and woman doing PIV sex or anal if you're Mark Driscoll.
Yeah. Right.
Uh, you're on this very narrow road. That's the only way it's okay. And like human sexuality is such an insanely big, huge, broad spectrum that's like a grain of sand. But the promise was, if you wait, you'll have a good sex life with your partner. But I'm actually reading Recovering from Purity Culture by Dr. I have to look up her name. It is actually written from the perspective of remaining in the faith,
Oh,
while
okay.
leading purity culture, but retaining purity and like having a sexual ethic of like only marital sex, which personally, as I'm sure you can guess, I don't agree with, but it's important for a lot of people to maintain their faith. So I'm like, I'm gonna check this book out and see like what this sexual ethic is, because you can absolutely choose not to have sex. It's a super valid choice for a myriad of reasons, whether they're religious or physical or emotional or bandwidth related. I mean, one of the big reasons a lot of
Oh
women
my
go
God.
celibate is they're like, we just don't want to deal with men. Like, my God, we got too much shit to do. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
So I'm like curious about kind of how she's expressing like this type of sexual ethic, and something that comes up in like sexual education, coaching, or therapy. I do coaching, I'm not a therapist, is the PLICIT model, which is basically meeting people where they're at. I have to look up the actual acronym, but it's basically meeting people where they are at to give them appropriate information that is going to help them in their situation. If you want to stay in your faith, but you've realized like, hey, this is a crazy double standard and it's making me hate myself, or feel like I am intrinsically bad and evil and my body is bad, then I think this book is a pretty good resource so far. I'm about 3/4 of the way through it. I one of these days I'll get like an actual narrative of my story instead of jumping back and forth between decades.
That's okay. No, well, one of the things I'm curious about is because I know that for young women, there's so many more. I mean, I think the rules are, as far as I can tell, the rules are the same, but they're just enforced in a more stricter way than they are with the males in terms of masturbation, uh, obviously dress code and things of that sort. Did you feel that from, the time at Biola or different schools that you went to, that the guys didn't get it as bad
Oh,
as
yeah.
the young women did?
Yeah. Yes. And the way they get around this is the the concept is, yes, that like we're all like inherently lustful and we shouldn't, and sex is bad until you get married, and then it's magically good despite no one knowing what they're doing. Um, but it purity culture frames it really objectifies women. It tells us that we are objects of lust, and it tells men that they are lustful monsters with no self-control, which is why there is such an outsized self-reporting of sex addiction and porn addiction in Christian people, particularly Christian men, when actually their usage rates are lower than the general population. Um, and it teaches girls and women, young girls and women, that it's our responsibility to keep our brothers in Christ from stumbling, which is a reference to, I want to say something Jesus said, but I'm not pulling up a reference for that right now. But that is an actual like Bible verse that people use. Some people think like the golden rules in the Bible. It's not, or that it's like a commandment. It's not. Anyways, it was actually at Biola. Okay, you went to Forest Home. I went to Hume Lake. I had to wear the T-shirt over the swimsuit. I'm from Northern Nevada. It's pretty conservative up there. Nevada's a blue state in general, but that's because of Las Vegas and the highly populated area like there, and like Reno, and then everything else is very red. But my church went to Hume Lake, and we had that, the whole like wear a T-shirt, cover up. I went to an apologetics conference when I was about 17 or 18, hosted by God knows who at Seattle Pacific University, and I got talked to by an RA or whatever the camp counselor equivalent was for that conference. Like, an apologetics conference, by the way, is somewhere you go to learn how to defend the Bible. An apologetic is basically a rhetorical framework for understanding or arguing about something. So I was at a Bible conference to learn, because I was very devout and I was very well educated. I went to private Christian schools my entire life, etc. So like I got pulled aside because my T-shirt was like sheer enough, I guess, that you could see the pattern of my bra, and the counselor was like, this lady was like, yeah, like it might be distracting and like you should change. And I was like, oh my God, I feel terrible. Like I don't want to tempt my brothers, because I was super devout and bought in up until like kind of the end of college. And Biola was really where my deconstruction started. But at Biola, like we had all these rules about what we could wear and the contract and everything, and like all this stuff about lust and men, and all these chapels about male lust and porn and masturbation addiction. Porn addiction's not real. That's not a real thing. That's a bugbear we can get to later. Yeah. There's compulsory sexual behavior. That's usually a problem with compulsion and not with, anyway. The cross-country team, the men's cross-country team at Biola would run their drills across campus. And you know what they were wearing? They weren't even wearing spaghetti straps. They were wearing like, those little shorts.
I was going to say, were they wearing the little guys?
Yeah, the little guys. They're just running, all of them, in nothing but that. I'm like,
balls bouncing in the breeze,
like they're hot. Like I am generally like a higher libidoed person, apparently, which is probably what brought me to like noticing these things, because religious purity culture does a very good job of teaching young women that we are not sexual, or that men are much more sexual. And like, because of there are hormonal differences between cisgender male and female people with higher testosterone tend to be hornier, but that variance occurs within genders as well. Yep. And it's not the only determining factor. So anyway, as a horny lady teenager and a horny young lady student, a horny young co-ed at Biola. Oh, what a whole quote. I hope they're never good. They're going to take me off.
Lacey Bond, horny young co-ed at Biola University. Said, yeah.
I was just like, what? This is so dumb. This is so like not fair. What the heck? Like this doesn't make any sense. Like, and I think I finally went to like one chapel that was for women, and it was in a different area because at Biola you're required to go to at least 30 chapels a semester, and there's like 6 of them a week you can choose from. You have to badge in and badge out so you get credit, and if you don't go to enough of them, you have to like listen to the sermons and make them up later. And if you don't do that, they'll fine you. Right now, the fine is $375 if you don't get all your chapel credits. I checked.
What? Mm. I mean, I went to parochial school my whole life, so I get it. But at the same time, it's so dumb. But go on.
This is a school that costs $40,000 a year, by the way.
What?
Yeah.
And you get fined if you don't go get enough body of Christ in you. Like if you
Yeah,
don't
you're
get
not
enough.
you're not Christianing hard enough. We need to take money about it.
Do you take communion at these? Because it's not mass. They're
No.
Christian rather than Catholic, so you're not taking like Eucharist.
No, communion was usually more so in the Protestant traditions. Typically, communion is more of like a special event type of deal. It's not given at every service.
Formal wear is required.
Yeah, you have to wear your hat. Different churches and denominations do
Yeah.
it a little bit differently. I mean, I had a fun, pretty good upbringing. Like I talk a lot about it. It was strict, it was controlling, it was a high control religion. However, I also like in one of my private Christian schools, like we could go build forts out in the like sagebrush of my elementary school with like no supervision. It was awesome because the school was built on like the site of an old dump or something.
That's
And so,
amazing
like,
and
yeah,
dangerous.
we were
I
out
love
there
it.
like latchkey kid Gen X style. Like, I'm so sorry,
Yeah.
my camera keeps doing this. I don't know how to make it turn off the autofocus, but at Biola,
Yes.
my senior year, we had this final project of expressing a countercultural perspective for our capstone project, which is kind of like an undergrad thesis ish. And by that point, I had just been noticing the double standards especially between genders, because like I had taken a gendered communication course at Biola in the course of which said course, I learned that gender is a social construct that varies over time across cultures and regions. And I was like, oh, interesting. So all of this shit about women being not as good as men, which is never something that was like explicit in my upbringing. I would describe my upbringing as borderline or fundamentalist evangelicalism. Fundamentalist in that like the focus is a very strict, narrow, literal interpretation of the biblical text.
Okay.
There's fundamentalist sects of all kinds of religions. The more fundamentalist, the closer to a literal interpretation of the text, generally speaking. And you can't do that with religious texts, generally speaking, because they are full of metaphor and they were written in a time and a place and a culture that is not us. And one of the issues I had after I graduated from Biola before I deconverted was that a lot of pastors did not have the same socio-historic understanding of the source culture. So they'd be talking about stuff from the scripture. And I'm like, you're not talking about what this is about. Like you're pulling this book of prophecy or this story from Kings that is like about a very specific thing that the Israelite tribes were going through in that time, in that tradition. You know, whatever you believe about the historicity of the Bible and of the text, it was not written for 19th century America. And I hate that I just did this. Why did this enter our cultural? I hate it.
Yeah. Well, you know.
I'm just gonna Alexis Rose this. Okay.
There we go. Yeah. Yeah.
Regardless of what you
Adopt a
believe about
new-
regardless of what you believe about the historicity of the biblical text, it was not written for us. So it was actually written and orally passed down in a time and a place thousands of years ago for a culture that was actually originally polytheistic, pre-temple Judaism, not a monotheistic.
And on top of that,
religion.
yeah, translated multiple times by
Translated
whoever.
back
And
and forth, like it's a whole
Yes.
thing. But anyway, like my upbringing was fairly fundamentalist evangelical in that sense of like trying to like really like generally mostly like literal interpretation. And I went to a few different Christian schools. I did go to 2 different Christian colleges. I transferred into Biola because it's an expensive school.
Yeah.
I graduated from college when I was high school when I was 17, college when I was 20. And that's really hard to
Wow.
do when you go to a college that requires a 30 credit Bible minor, which Biola does. So I had basically stopped going to school. Like I basically combined high school, homeschool, and community college when I was in high school.
Wow.
So I was ahead. I had a bunch of college credits. So came in as like a super sophomore, basically, and I did this Bible Bridge program with Biola. I took additional, which is a transfer program, so you can get like 6 credits of Bible over the summer. And I also attended a few classes with the Moody Bible Institute, which had a great class on prophecy and included the book The Prophetic Imagination by Walter Brueggemann, which was enlightening for me because that book goes into how a lot of the prophetic texts in the Old Testament are more of contemporaneous political commentary than they are future prediction. But we don't need to go down the whole big rabbit hole of theology, but suffice it to say,
Yeah.
I have a very strong theological and apologetic background, and the deconstruction of my faith came from a place of biblical scholarship and curiosity while noticing the discrepancies between both, how genders were treated and, coming back to that capstone project, the way human sexuality was treated, because the thesis for that was essentially, hey, like the sex negativity of the church, the silence around it is really harmful for women, and it's not really biblical. One of the things I like about this book I'm reading right now by Dr.
You can show it if you'd like. We can show and tell that shit.
Here's a screenshot.
There we go. Oh, I actually saw that when I was Googling, when I was doing the Googles of the search.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What's it called again?
Dr. It is called Recovering from Purity Culture, Dr. Camden Morgante. I don't think it's gonna
Oh, I love
there it
that
is. There it
name.
goes.
Hamden. Yes, it came in great.
I don't know if I'm
Okay.
pronouncing her last name, but actually she responded to a Facebook comment that I left on like a
Oh,
thread where someone was recommending the book. Because I was
okay.
like, hey, just checking, this book seems like it's very much from the staying in the faith perspective. Is that through the whole thing? And she's like, yeah, it is. I don't recommend my book to everyone. You have to kind of like meet people where they're at. I was like, that's very good. And one of the things I like about this was that she highlights that the Bible is actually fairly sex positive. The way you interpret a text really depends on your education and your framework and your scholarship. And there are a million different flavors of scholarship for any of the big 3 religions of Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. So I really appreciated that because I think she's right. Especially because like the particular flavor of sex negativity that we have in especially the American evangelical church today is very specific and artificialized. And we have also turned sex and sexuality and purity into an idol because the dominant feeling and teaching is that it's a worse sin than like anything else except maybe
Right.
like murder, when that's not biblical. If you basically scholars agree generally, like no sin is worse than the others except for like denying Jesus. I believe like denying or lying about your faith was one of the main ones that does tend to come up as like, okay, this one is actually pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So
yeah, I mean, honestly, as an anthropologist, and it's funny because, like, I grew up going to Presbyterian church, which is they are about as chill and laid back. Like, I chose to get baptized. I don't talk about this much. I chose to get baptized when I was 14. That is not normal. You know what I mean? Like, I was like,
you can't really do that as a child.
yeah,
You
yeah.
shouldn't be allowed to.
Yeah, it was, but like my mom, I really like this. My mom grew up Church of Christ and is not, I wouldn't say she's not religious. I wouldn't say she is religious. She's somewhere, think she still believes in some Christianity, but Church of Christ is one of the very, very, fundamentalist, a lot of rules, no dancing, no wearing pants, very, rooted in these gender norms. And my mom, is Dr. Reagan. She became a professor and graduated early and went on and did amazing things with her life, got out of the small town. But, I ended up becoming Presbyterian. And the only reason why is because my big thing was they were so liberal and they didn't have any beef with homosexuality, because I already knew at that point I was whatever, bisexual, pansexual. But we ended up at Forest Home. That was why it was funny when we ended up at Forest Home, because our church was super liberal. And all of a sudden they're like, yeah, you're going to distract the boys from God. But as I became an anthropologist and I realized that, and I've given talks about this at Nexus, was it the New England Science conference, whatever, about how men and female, males and women, men and women are not so different, and there is a lot of overlap. When you talked about hormones across our species, there's plenty of women that have more testosterone than many men, like it is wild, the range. And that's not the only factor. A lot of it is so much dictated by culture. And I really do believe that men and women are not so different, and everybody in between. We're all very much similar, and a lot of what brings us together is culture, how we are nurtured, how we are raised, how we choose to walk among, around this world. And as a primatologist, though, too, I remember the first time I was in the field studying spider monkeys, I saw 3 copulations in one day, which was kind of unheard of. My advisor was so pissed. She's like, I've only seen 2 in my whole, 20 years of research. I saw 3. And I remember there were all these young spider monkeys hanging off of mom while she's getting pounded by dad. And and by the way, people at home know this, that, female spider monkeys have a hypertrophied clitoris. That's how you tell them apart. Just a reminder. But I remember thinking, it just really drove home this idea that we put this moral spin, this shameful spin on sex and sexuality that you don't see in, the animal kingdom. And a lot of it comes down to, like we've talked about, control, power, wanting to assert this sort of control onto women rather than the young men in these purity, culture groups. Right. So I feel like you have really escaped and, like we said, thrived in such a way where you really own your sexuality. Like, I feel like you're so open, you're so honest. And that's one of the things I think, as we've gotten to know each other, I was just so impressed by that. You talk about the fact that you were in purity culture and you left. So I was wondering if maybe there was like an aha moment of, it sounds like there were probably, maybe it wasn't just one moment, but was there maybe a series of moments where you're like, I this isn't for me. What am I doing here?
Yeah. It was definitely a series, and some people consider all religions to be cults. I do think evangelical Christianity has the cult-like groupthink where you basically, what I'm trying to get at is no one can make you leave a cult. You leave when you're ready. The same thing is true, I think, largely for evangelicalism, especially if you're like, you've grown up super devout without anything outside. Because I did not really get a lot of external, like Biola was a less restrictive environment for me, and that is saying a lot.
Wow.
Yeah. So a big piece was that gender realization. Another one was frustration when I was trying to Google sexual health information on campus and I was getting net nannied. Like, I couldn't look up something about, like, it was like clitoral sensitivity or something, like I was having some issue. And I was like, this is the fuck, like, I'm 21. Actually, no, I was 20 when I graduated, so I probably would have been like 20. Anyway, I'm 20 and like I can't look up like this problem that I'm having, like, without going off campus to a
Well, the
Starbucks.
clitoris is not real.
I will
That's
say,
crazy.
growing up, there was like an anatomically correct, like, Christian, like, education book about
For
sex in
real?
your body. Yeah, in my home, like, growing up. So like we were not like, we got some information, but I didn't get like a lot of great information, and it was definitely very shame and purity based. But
Yeah.
I remember this book and I remember being fascinated by it because I was fascinated by bodies, because I'm a very sensual person. I've always liked touch and feeling and sensation. I've always been sensation or sensory seeking. Anyway, Biola. I was also like, I was off campus and somehow I had come across Nina Hartley, the porn star, was doing
Yeah.
educational videos on EdenFantasies.com, which is a sex toy site. And I was like, this is so informative and like it's engaging and not dry. It was pretty wet, actually.
Yeah.
And just kind of finally getting that education, because like sex ed in Christian high school is very minimal and very homophobic, in my experience. Very abstinence only. Don't have sex. If you do, you'll get an STD, or you'll get pregnant, and we'll throw you out of the school because you can't be pregnant in school. that almost happened to a friend of mine who got pregnant in my high school, but apparently one of the board members like brought a rock to the board meeting and like confronted the board leader who wanted to have her kicked out. And he was like, puts this rock down. He's like, let him who's without sin cast the first stone, Brian. And I was like, I can't believe, like, I heard this story from like their kids, and I was like, that's amazing.
Fuck you, Brian. That's great. That's so good. It takes adults to stand up and oh my God.
Yeah, taking someone out of school for getting pregnant is just a great way to ruin their life because
Yeah.
pregnancy as a punishment sets you up so bad. Anyway, the aha moments. Like I was dating someone like during and after college, and like the first time like I slept with them, like I felt like so guilty, but at the same time I was just like, this is, I feel like I was still like in that, and it was someone that like and thought I was like saving myself for marriage, so I was like thought it was like, gonna be that person, and like I just like the experience of like the first time you have sex and you're like, oh God, like I've sinned, and I just like had a breakdown, and I ended up fine, obviously, but like that string of like that common thread of just like struggling and shame and like feeling like still feeling like this is wrong even if it's in a context where like it should be right. um I don't know, it was kind of tied up also with my deconstruction from the religion itself, which started tail end of Biola, where I kind of like stopped calling myself evangelical and was kind of examining and deconstructing the faith and seeing, you know, what else was possible for my faith journey. But that was just kind of like a chunk of years after college, like being on patheos.com, learning about purity culture, putting a name to it and be like, oh, this is the name for the thing that I don't like and that feels incorrect. And I have like in my project, I was like, this is not biblical. And because I actually did like some decent research for it, both biblically and with a sex educator that I got connected with. And the aha moment for me was actually in the first season of The Boys, where they go to it's like Faith Expo or something, a Christian festival.
Oh,
And
yes.
yeah, and Starlight gets invited to talk to this group of teenagers, and they're talking about purity, and one of the girls asks her basically like, she asks her a question that requires her to lie and say she's still a virgin. And she like locks eyes with the youth pastor who's like mad dog staring her down, like, you know what you need to say, I don't care if it's true, kind of a vibe. And so she like lies to this group of kids, and I was just like, oh God, I never seen myself on TV in this way. I was one of those kids, like, and I was just like, I'd gotten very frustrated with a lot of the narratives that I'd been taught and doctrines that I was slowly realizing are not the only way to interpret the text, like the doctrine of a hell of eternal conscious torment. The Almost Heretical podcast, which I talk about like all the time, has a great series on both heaven and hell. It's by a couple of formerly evangelical pastors. Really great biblical scholarship. Really helped me heal from my hell fear, because hell fear, if you're working with atonement theology, which is the Jesus died on a cross for our sins, John 3:16, for God so loved the world, he sent his only begotten son, and if you believe in him, blah, 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 salvation. Associating hell and sin and sex just fucks you right up, man. It's hard for me to pinpoint because there were so many things basically in that almost decade post graduation, probably like 5 to 8 years if I had to like really condense it. But just like slowly learning that my body was just okay because it just is this way. It's not my fault if a guy gets turned on if he sees me. Like it was really reading about purity culture and other people's stories, especially of Elizabeth Smart, who was kidnapped when she was like 12 or 14, held captive, repeatedly, trigger warning, repeatedly raped, like, and didn't try to get help because even like there were opportunities she could have, but because she had been given the chewed up gum metaphor specifically, which means she got that young, she was like, no, I would not be pure. Like she's done TED Talks about this. She's like, I wouldn't be pure. Like who would want me? I'm damaged goods. And that was so horrifying. And that's like you were talking about. It's one of the things that equates purity culture to rape culture for me. Like we don't, if you believe in a loving God, you should believe that everyone has agency, autonomy, and bodily sovereignty, regardless of virginal status, regardless of having been hurt or harmed or assaulted. And it really does not, it just really takes away your agency and autonomy. It tells you that your body is not yours. It's either your further future spouses or God's, and it's yours. If you also believe that it's God's, okay, but it's not your future spouse's. Like, it's yours.
I can't roll my eyes back further and not this will fall out of my head. No, and this idea of just again, women not having agency, I think what really frustrates me. One of the hardest, the most, because it's just this. It really is telling women that their voice, their ideas, their opinion does not matter. They are not worthy of respect only if they hit these certain benchmarks. And it's yeah, I mean, it's a recipe for disaster, and it's also a way that we will never measure up ever, and I think that we see that across not just in purity culture, but in many different cultures around the world, subcultures, especially here in the US. And it's just, yeah, it's one of those things that I feel like the more we talk about it, and even with Ms. Elizabeth Smart's case, she didn't want to talk about it because of the purity culture element, but there are so many other women in other situations that don't want to talk about their assault because nobody believes women. I mean, look at the Epstein files, and we have plenty of women who have said this happened to me.
Release them.
I know, if they would just release the files, then I'll believe. But it's like, wait a minute, we know they said the thing. And that's the thing that I think is so absolutely infuriating. And yeah, I mean, being a woman is fun. Fantastic.
Listen, we get to have multiple orgasms, so I mean,
this is true. If we know how, if we know that the clitoris is real. And Dolores, where is Dolores? Dolores is somewhere. The clitoris, Dolores is somewhere in the back. I'll get her with Raisin in a minute. But yeah, I mean, there are so many people. One of my favorite things was at Burning Man 2023 when they had the 30-foot tall concrete sculpture of the clitoris called Tip of the Iceberg. And I actually was standing next to it when it started raining because it was the only place I could get phone reception. She was like a giant antenna. But I remember at the end of the burn, I would have men come up to me and be like, so what was your favorite art piece here? And I'd be like, oh, it had to be the 30-foot tall clitoris in deep playa. And they just look at me and say, what? Where was that? And I was just like, even at 30 feet tall, you still can't find her. It's rude.
Wow.
Rude. But I mean, again, they don't even know the shape of the clitoris, when the anatomy of 51% of the population's anatomy is completely forgotten or not even discussed. It's but yes, we can have the multiple orgasms. That gives us a little bit of a leg up. But yeah, I was as a child, I got busted for writing smut. I was a smut peddler at like age 10, 11, and I got in trouble multiple times. Even while being part of a Christian. And I always thought, like, if God, if they always said, God created humans in his image, then God must be hella gay and hella horny. You know what I mean? Because look at us, we're super gay. And if you created like Neil Patrick Harris, Ellen DeGeneres, and the purple Teletubby, I mean, come on, like super freaking gay. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm happy to see. And that was the other thing I think about purity cultures. It seems like it's super old. And that was one of the coolest things I learned when I was studying anthropology. And from a theoretical standpoint, was just this idea that tradition seems old, but tradition is as old as the last person who decided to adopt that tradition. Right. So that's the cool thing about, I think, evolution, is that biological evolution, unless you're bacteria, takes a lot of time. Or COVID. It's usually takes, tens, hundreds, thousands, whatever years, but culture evolution's super fast, and that's the cool part. And so we're seeing this deconstruction of purity culture. I'd love to talk more about like how you are helping people find themselves post purity culture.
Yeah, because there's some very specific flavors that come through for people that we gotta unfuck ourselves from. Like,
I love that.
The rate of vaginismus among Christian women is like 23%, which is twice what it is outside of that. And vaginismus is it's a physiological condition where you generally like you experience pain during sex. The vagina is really tight, and it's a combination of mental state and actual like not anatomy, because that implies that it's just like that, but it's like the pelvic floor being really tight, and there's a lot of interventions for that. The treatment really usually has to include both like mental health therapy and physical activities to like relax the pelvic floor, work on your relaxation, know that you are okay. It's okay. You're good. Your body is good. It's okay. It's more complicated than that. I am not a therapist who like specifically works on that side of it, but that is one of the main things that happens in purity culture Christian women. A lot of people like feel conflicted about like desiring their spouse because you can't be told sex is bad, sex is bad, sex is bad, you'll go to hell, sex is bad for years or decades, depending on how long it takes you to get married. If you ever do, and then suddenly flip the switch and have like a functional relationship, because purity culture doesn't teach you anything about sexual communication other than just saying no. So people don't have any sense of their own sexual boundaries, which is one of the reasons marital rape is so high in purity culture, and one of the reasons I equate it with rape culture, because when you lack the vocabulary around your body, the words, the way sex works, consent in general, let alone like graduated consent or a nuanced understanding of consent, it doesn't give you the skills needed to navigate any kind of sex. It is extremely rare for someone to just start having sex and be decent enough at it that both people are happy with it. And being basically like not allowed to date or sleep around at all inhibits people from learning what sexual compatibility looks like. You can absolutely develop and foster sexual compatibility and communication within relationships, but not if you're never even given the skills to talk about it. And so I do appreciate like that book I'm reading, like resources for people who are still in the faith, to be like, hey, it's okay to talk about this, and you're not evil for being attracted to your spouse. But I've had like men from purity culture say to me that like I feel bad about like fantasizing about my wife or solo pleasure, thinking like about her, because because we get put on this weird pedestal that like we're these objects of lust, but you're not supposed to lust after us.
Such a push and pull.
Yeah, there's also a phenomena where and this happens in a lot of relationships, like the sex is fun at first and then it just kind of like drops off, isn't as satisfying. But one of the reasons this happens in Christian or post-purity relationships or purity culture relationships, wherever you are in that amoeba, is once the taboo is gone and you're not doing something wrong and exciting, it's not as exciting and fulfilling. And if that's the only aspect of sexuality that is like getting you off and you're not compatible in other ways, well, unfortunately, you're kind of stuck. And there are plenty of ways to healthily explore the taboo, the exciting, and the novel. Justin Lehmiller's book, Tell Me What You Want, that's the best book.
I love Justin.
I want to get on his podcast so bad.
He's so great.
He's
I've
so
interviewed
good.
him a couple times. He's fantastic.
Introduce me.
Yeah, I know. He did the Two Girls One Mic podcast a couple times. I did a porn parody podcast. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna stop fangirling about Justin for a second and talk about his work. The Tell Me What You Want book talks a lot about this. Like, one, most people's fantasies are actually really common, even the ones that you think are really taboo, like consensual non-consent, an extremely common fantasy. and CNC includes like a range of other things, not just like simulated assault. Like bratting is actually kind of a form of consensual non-consent in like a BDSM context, because you're being like, no, I don't want to, and then your dom is like, oh, you don't?
Yeah.
You've
Mhm.
negotiated.
Yeah.
And so like there is so many opportunities to explore the taboo, but when you're operating in this very strict purity culture, narrow, like heterosexual marriage that probably does, just generally speaking, not very friendly to kink exploration, as I would term it. There are Christian kinksters. I'm impressed by them. I want to meet some in real life. But
Really?
yeah, I've had people in my comments, because I'd asked about high protocol, which is the very like formal ritual, like master, sir, servant,
Ooh.
high protocol ritual, rules, discipline, punishments, and incentive, obedience based BDSM dynamics. And I was like, I'm curious, like straw poll for the purity culture or religious trauma survivors out there. Like, does this type of dynamic appeal to you? Because it doesn't to me, because it's so high control. But like, I had a couple people like, oh yeah, totally, like it works for me. And that is one of the reasons I'm writing my book on exploring the healing relationships between of kink and like for healing from purity culture. I'm still kind of workshopping the blurb a little bit, but sorry, I caught sight of a comment, Peter, that just left.
Oh,
Anyway.
yeah. No, I do. I here, hold on. Let me do a shout out. I got to do a shout out. My
Okay.
unfinished sock. It's not finished. The sock is unfinished. Says, "Don't be a misogynistic jackass. Like and share the stream instead." Thank you, my unfinished sock. I hope one day your sock finishes in a sock. And now I drink some protein drink. Go on. That's not
Hell yeah.
a euphemism. It's just
It's
I
just
it's just a
a
protein drink,
thick,
I swear.
white, creamy drink. Enjoy.
Viscous, a little a little
Oh yeah.
sodium.
Good girl. Drink it down. Um Basically, like what purity culture does though is it makes all sex taboo. Which is why I think so many of us just want to be called a good girl and have a praise kink, just because it's like it's okay to have sex. Like I know that in my mind, but I need you to tell me while my
Please
body's
tell me.
doing it. Like
Aw.
just it's a physiological reminder. Like I've set my partner up as the higher power, and they're gonna tell me it's okay, and it's okay. Uh, and so like one of like there's so many like remedial type problems that people have. Like a lot of it is moral incongruence,
Uh-huh.
feeling like you shouldn't like desire your spouse, feeling like struggling with porn, but in a way that it's because purity culture basically says that all porn is evil and bad, which I don't believe it is, and that it's cheating
Oh God.
in relationships where you both come from purity culture and someone is
Oh.
consuming any amount of porn. They may self-identify as a porn addict, even though they're using it like once a month.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know. I don't know too much about porn addiction or what has been called porn addiction, because I am curious about your take on the term porn addiction.
Mhm.
Because as far as I know, or as I've heard, again, I'm not well versed in this. It's somebody who watches it voraciously, like daily, and substitute. Well, I mean, I know and this is very anecdotal.
Mhm.
I've had friends, for instance, whose marriages essentially ended because they were having issues in the bedroom. They were one couple had been married for a very long time. So I mean, it had kind of run its course a little bit. It had been like 20 years. They needed a little spice it up. And so the dude in the relationship was watching lots and lots and lots of porn. It was very specific, a lot younger girls, and I mean, not underage, but just like, and it was daily, daily, daily.
Teen.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
petite ladies that look like they could have been co-eds at Biola University. A very, very bad girl, naughty, naughty girl. But yeah, and so that kind of was. I mean, and by all means, the woman in the relationship was not a prude at all, like not at all, and was kind of disappointed because it was like, take that energy and
Yeah.
bring it to the bedroom. So that was the situation. But anyways, I would like to hear your take.
Yeah. So the TLDR
Mm.
is that so porn addiction is generally not recognized by like sex therapists or sexologists because the compulsive behavior around sex and porn is usually it's generally more about compulsive sexual behavior, the compulsion, rather than it is like about porn. Justin actually has a couple of really great episodes on this exact thing. I was listening to his podcast this week. There's like 6 episodes in the last year or so on porn addiction. It is not in the DSM. Technically, neither is religious trauma. However, these are things that like kind of get diagnosed in like constellations of things. And again, I'm speaking as a sexologist, a sex coach, not a licensed therapist, but the program that I come from is with coaches and therapists. And generally speaking, sex therapists don't recognize porn addiction because the problem is usually moral incongruence, relational problems, or a compulsive behavior, a compulsive disorder. Calling it porn addiction or sex addiction pathologizes both of those things in a way that the sex positive community is generally not comfortable with, because the more we stigmatize and put shame around anything related to sex, the harder it is to get adequate treatment for it. You can absolutely have a really unhealthy, damaging, destructive relationship with your consumption of porn. You can absolutely have a damaging, destructive relationship with your work habits, your video gaming habits. The same type of thing that you might call video game addiction, if it's would kind of correlate in the same way. If it is negatively impacting your life, your relationships, your ability to work, your finances, it is a problem and does need to be addressed. So when I say porn addiction isn't real, what I mean is it's not recognized broadly by the sex therapy and sex positive community. Neither is it recognized by like the sex coaching and education community. Same with sex addiction. But that's because it doesn't behave like an addiction. With addictions, you chemically get accustomed to having it and you get less and less sensitive to it over time. But in studies, and Justin's podcast, Sex and Psychology, does talk about this. I forget which episode. In studies where they look at regular porn consumers versus people who don't use it as often, the people who consume porn as regularly aren't actually super desensitized to it, which is a common myth that like people say that you are and you get desensitized, but like actually in the research does not back this up, because again, human sexuality is vast and broad. You can absolutely have a damaging relationship with it. It can ruin your life, your marriage, but generally the kind of the framework and way of thinking is it's about the compulsion, not about the substance or the porn, the way an addiction would be about the substance.
Yeah. Okay, that is very helpful. Yeah, and I need to listen to Justin's series because that sounds fantastic. And
it was so good. I mean, shout out Justin, thank you.
Yeah, shout out to Justin Lehmiller. Seriously, not only like is a super nice guy, but endlessly fascinating and does wonderful research at the Kinsey Institute. Just let's like I'll fangirl till the cows come home. And trashy lingerie. I love a cow in trashy lingerie, by the way. All 8.
We should
all
find
the udders. All the udders just swathed in lace. You know what I mean? Like really held up. You know, I've never seen a cow with good cleavage. Sweater cows. That's what I like to call my puppies. My devil's dumplings. Hold on, I'm getting a call from potential spam. Should I answer it? I feel like I should answer it live on this and just ask them, hey, do you have a cow in some trashy lingerie?
I'd watch that, but you know, we don't have to. We should probably stay on focus.
I think we're
what were we even talking about?
We were singing the praises of Justin Lehmiller and the fact that like really questioning the idea of porn addiction. Because I know that, in fact, I admitted on Nash. So as a child, I'd watched Skinamax After Dark. And you know, or Skinamax as we like to call it, Cinemax After Dark, and which was softcore porn. And growing up in the San Fernando Valley, I you didn't look over all the retainer walls. Sometimes you knew not to look over the retainer wall in the backyard because you knew something was being filmed or you heard things, right? You knew what was going on. And sometimes I remember I was an office manager at a production company at 21. I don't know who hires anyone to be an office manager at 21, but Steve and HR had to take a week off to go shoot a film. Didn't tell us much about it. A couple years later, I was watching some Skinamax with my best friend Jer Bear, and there was Steve from HR pounding some hot blonde in a nice
Good
Skinamax
for
film.
Steve.
Good for Steve. I was like, you know what? I know it wasn't SAG. That's okay. It was probably a non-union gig, but you got to do what you got to do.
I don't think SAG does adult films.
They need to get into that more. I don't know. So I've seen some films lately that I'm like, or some shows that are just like they're going in that, they're wading into that territory, and I'm okay with it. But point
Yeah,
being is,
bless
them.
the
Bless
intimacy
them.
coordinators who
Yes.
coordinate and
Yes.
choreograph those scenes and make
And we're
them
gonna
safe.
make them safe, make them realistic, but also everyone is at ease. But just real quickly, because I do want to talk to you about that. I was on the Today Show talking about America's obsession with breasts, talking to Ann Curry, and I admitted on national television that I used to watch Skinamax as a child because of the puritanical nature of our country. You know, I didn't know what was considered normal boobies or this, or, and also I thought boobies were hot. But you know, again, like there's just so much. So many rules about what could be said or shown on television, which I think also really kind of plays into this purity culture. But then Ann Curry was shocked and said, "You said that on national television," and I've not been asked back by the Today Show. So if anyone on the Today Show is watching, you should have us both on to talk about
Titties.
Yes, titties. But I do want to talk to you about intimacy coordinating because, I mean, would you like to wait to talk about that? Because I do want to talk about your foray into that if you would like.
Well, it's an area that I want to get into.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of focusing on coaching and writing right now, but
Okay.
I met a few intimacy coordinators on the picket lines when I was covering,
Yes.
because they got added to SAG-AFTRA around that same time, which was great. And the new contract that they negotiated required productions to at least make best efforts to, I believe, was the determination. So like get an intimacy coordinator for any scene that had nudity or simulated sex.
Okay.
And then it was like, please get one if, and it was like kissing and something else. So like that's ramping up, like, and the the landscape is really cool. Like production has been picking up slowly since that strike, very slowly, but I'm hearing it's picking up more. I don't currently work in film, but because of my work with intimacy in general, because I do, I guess probably to bridge these two topics, as I was talking about, like the things that come up for purity culture survivors and like intimacy coordination. The work that I do one-on-one coaching. I'm also developing a class or two. I'm working on like a shame and self-acceptance class, like kind of a 101, like post-purity sexual empowerment. And I also want to building off of that, a post-purity kink, intro to kink class, because there are a lot of folks who find that the framework of kink or BDSM, kink is a little bit more expansive. It's like all the what's that you could be into, generally taboo, structured play. And then BDSM is like the framework. So, bondage and discipline, dominance and submission, sadism and masochism. And there's just like the power exchange,
Yeah.
the dominant and submissive, like that, like framework is very consent and communication and explicitly so based. And I think that my theory, my hypothesis is this is very appealing to people who come from a background where it's all bad and you're not allowed to do it and you're not allowed to talk about it and you're a sinner. And I'm sure there's probably some interesting trends in flavors that appeal to us, which is what I am working on. It's what my research is going to focus on, and the content of the book is going to be largely from that. So because I think it's a very interesting area that I have not really seen much written about yet. And as someone with the lived experience of both good Christian girl and now good girl, I think I'm uniquely positioned
I love
to
that.
research and write about this, and I'm really excited about it. But so I do individual coaching, and I'm working on a class, and I speak a lot on a podcast, and I'm also on this series called Real Talk with the Sexperts that my friend Jamie started after a retreat we went on back in April, and I think we're already on like our fifth session. Like we've been doing them monthly, and
Great.
yeah, we got one next week on the 16th. It's part 2 of a polyamory uh series, I guess, a series of 2, because there's just so much on the last one that we wanted to keep it going. So I'll be on that next Tuesday, I think 3 p.m. Pacific, I want to say. It's on my Instagram, Intimacy Lacey, but
Follow her.
follow me. I promise I'll be making more content soon. I've just been very busy, but I also spend a lot of time working with folks in like purity culture recovery groups, just like supporting in the comments and explaining various things, just people like where they're at, because there's a lot of people post purity, and there's like there's just a lot of shame and just the basic need for self-acceptance, and just being told like it's okay, and getting basic sexual information, because so many of us just did not get it. Like you wrote some out when you were 11. I was reading fanfic when I was like 14. That was the first explicit thing I read. It was like an Aragorn Legolas fanfic, and I was like, what is
Ooh.
this tool that they're using?
Oh my gosh. And at that age, were you already thinking this isn't for me, or were you trying to shoehorn it in? You know what I mean? Like try to make it fit.
This isn't for me, like the purity culture.
Yeah.
I was just in a place of massive cognitive dissonance, I think, because I was just like, this is hot and I'm into this, but I feel bad. I shouldn't be focused on pleasure like this. Like I shouldn't be reading this stuff. It's dirty. I should be hiding it. I got caught once. Like I think my mom found some that was like printed out under my bed, like turning red style. And like, yeah. She was very disappointed, as I recall. I don't remember the details of that conversation other than being like, "Oh my god, I'm panicking, I'm in trouble, I'm bad." Unlearning that you are bad takes a long time.
It really does. It sticks. I know my mom found the smut the first time because it was a couple who made love on a bearskin rug in Lake Tahoe. I'd never been to Lake Tahoe at that point. I'd never been, but they were making love on a bearskin. He had a 9-inch snake. I didn't know much. I didn't know much. He was wearing a jock strap. Why? I don't know why. I thought men wear jock straps always. There was a line. He licked her nipples as if he was a kitten expecting milk. I mean, I mean, the imagery was not bad for
Yeah.
11, you know? His manhood stood tall like a toy soldier preparing for battle. I mean, it was good, but my mom found it and she threatened to tell my dad, and I was like, "Ah!" And then I picked it back up again in junior high and took commissions from my friends in junior high and drew pictures, and I wasn't good at hiding shit because my mom found them again. And I'm pretty sure she trashed them. I wish they still existed. And then I got busted again in high school, and I just blamed my parents' divorce. I was just like, "My parents are getting divorced." You know what I mean? Like, they're like, "We're gonna send you to the principal." And I just, but it was like, again, yeah, it was this idea. And I was a very yeah, I always like to catch this. I mean, I grew up in the 80s, so I was catching the scrambled boob on the Playboy channel, right? Like this is I know I'm really
What is
dating myself.
that?
Okay, oh God.
I'm too
So
young.
hold
Tell me,
on.
elder.
Hold on. I'm from the 1900s, Lacey. I come from the 70s. I know I squeaked into the 70s, but yeah, so back in the day we had televisions with bunny ears. Now they weren't real bunny ears. They were antennae, like a beetle or some sort of aphid or shit, and then you tweak the antennae to get a booby, because you would go to the channel that would have the Playboy and it would be scrambled because your parents didn't pay for that shit. No, no, my dad just got pornos on VHS. Those were also tapes or beta if you were into that shit. It's the early 80s. But yeah, so they get the scramble and you'd adjust the bunny ears and you get like a tit for a second and you'd be like, "Ah!" And God, I remember I got to quote this only because it's just so funny. I remember watching, like, my high school boyfriend and I, again, this is the 1900s. We were trying to catch one of these scrambled boob things. And we got the dialogue, and the dialogue was rich. It was, it was basically a couple, and he was mad at her because she dared to have anal sex with another man, and this boyfriend was like, that, but that's our way, and she was like, she just looked at him and just said, I love you with my heart, not my asshole. Which is still to this day one of my favorite lines. I love you with my heart, not my asshole.
That's better than lemon stealing whores.
Wait, yeah. This is good too.
You know about lemon stealing whores?
No, tell me more.
I think it was, hold on, let me check that I've got this right. It was this like just really stupid porn that I think Stoya and James Dean did. Hold on. Let me check. I'm double checking.
Yeah.
It's just like they kept like repeating the line, like she was like stealing lemons from like his yard, and he was just like, I mean,
stealing
Dean is
more.
not a great person. We don't talk about him, but they just like they're just like stealing lemons off this tree and kept repeating the refrain, "Lemon stealing whore," and I just can't ever get it out of my head. But I love you with my heart, not my asshole is better.
But she said it with such sincerity. It was so
good.
But yeah, that was how we digested pornographic films. Is if your parents didn't splurge for I mean, my mom's not going to get the Playboy channel, like, but that was also like, I remember one of my sort of, bisexual awakenings was really being like, I like this, they didn't show male full frontal nudity, that's for sure. But yeah, there was so many rules about what is out there. And so I think uh, I think it's great that you are working with people to kind of let the freak flag fly, which I do want to ask you about, as a kink educator, like, how did you get into, or how did you find yourself being like, I like kink and this is something, I'm sure there's a story there. If you're willing to share, I'm here to listen like a fly on the wall.
It was fairly roundabout. Like, I think as I was getting a little more comfortable in my sexuality in general, like a few years after Biola, this was the good times on Tumblr. This was when Tumblr still had porn. And like, there was just so many sexy GIFs or GIFs, however you want to, I'm non-denominational.
Biffs, I know.
Of just like glamour porn. That was like really sexy. And around that time, 50 Shades had come out, which is not a great depiction of BDSM. It's very hot. The film, actually, the sex scenes in that film are really well choreographed and lit. And I was like, we watched them for a roast night at one of my local dungeons. It was great. That is the way to watch that movie, is with 20 other gangsters and popcorn and just shit talking Christian Grey the entire time, and us all wanting to adopt Anna because she is so stupid and incompetent, and this man will just not leave her alone or respect her boundaries. The fundamental of kink and BDSM is consent and respecting boundaries. Christian Grey does not do that. But like, this was all happening at the same time. I was like, oh, this is sexy and interesting. And I had actually met a couple of people from, it was like an arguments at Biola. It was like a Facebook page, because for a while all the colleges had like an arguments at whatever college, and like we just had, or overheard at the college. Yeah, we had a group just like arguing about dumb shit, and I'd made friends with a couple of people who turned out to be poly and kinky and like really cool and really open about educating and like telling me about it. And I was like, neat, interesting. This seems logical for some reason. And yeah, just it's crazy what like making friends with interesting people will do and open yourself up to. And around the same time, I'd also worked my first season at the Renaissance Fair. Which,
I mean,
if you don't know, the Venn diagram of Ren Fair, D&D, kink / BDSM, and polyamory is a stack of pancakes, basically. Because it just is. I mean, in large part because a lot of it is role play and
Yeah.
game design. Like kink and BDSM is basically just game design. It's adult play, and you get to work off these operating mechanics of power exchange, and there's different flavors of it. And it's almost like different genres of games, and you just kind of, the world is your oyster, and you can. That's why so many dungeon masters are also dungeon masters.
Yes.
So I
That's
was
so
getting
great.
exposed to a lot of really cool people who were just like really nice and healthy and not trying to tear me away from the Lord as I had been promised would happen by the church. And so I ended up finding, like, I was reading a lot of fanfic. I've always read a lot of fanfic, and I'm a big proponent of it, especially because Archive of Our Own has a really robust tagging system, and you can
Oh.
find. Someone in our comments just said, apparently I'm doing DM wrong.
Oh, that's amazing.
But as around the same time, so I was reading a lot of fanfic, and like there's tags on the fanfic on Archive of Our Own, and so I was like finding themes of like things I was into and like reading more of that. Like, oh, a praise kink. Oh, a virginity kink. I wonder why I have one of those. But I didn't have the chance to really explore much like in the real world until like, I don't know, like maybe 2018. I had a friend who was into shibari, rope bondage, and took me out and explained to me like a bunch of stuff about it and how like not all kink is sexual. And that's really weird. It all seems very sexual to me. And for me, because I am a very sexual person, a lot of it is, but I'm also demisexual, which means it takes a while to develop a connection where I would feel safe and comfortable engaging sexually with a person. But there's plenty of types of kinky play like that you don't have to have sex with. And generally speaking, like if you're at a dungeon or a play party and you're doing pickup play with someone, you're probably not like the expectation is not there for that generally. So like I'd went out to Threshold with this friend, which is one of the bigger dungeons here in LA, and went to like a rope night. And then over the next couple of years, like I went out with I have a little like queer platonic polycule of besties.
Oh, that's fun. That sounds
Yeah.
great.
We would go out to like taster events. Like we went to one at Sanctuary that was really good. There was an event called Backwards Bordello that's really fun, where it's a lot of performances and tasters. So it's a really interesting party vibe. And I missed their last one. I was out of town. But just like I started going to more of the dungeons around LA. I attended a couple of munches. And
Did you say munches?
yes,
I
so
don't know what a munch is. Wait, hold on. I have some glossary terms I'm gonna need some clarification on because I'm not a
okay.
dungeon gal. Tasters and munchers, which I feel like this is a zombie. It's like I feel like this could be like The Last of Us. Go on, tell me. What's a
So
taster?
a munch is a taster is a play-based event
Okay.
where you get to experience different types of kinky play. So at the Sanctuary event, there was a rope taster. So they had a rope top who was demonstrating different ties, and you could have him tie you. I think there was a him and there was a them tying, rope topping separately. And then there was like an impact taster. So you could have someone like flog you or paddle you or try a bunch of different implements and see how you liked how it felt, and how hard you wanted it. And at the beginning of this, like, you negotiate with the person. Pick up play, when you're negotiating a scene with someone you haven't, like, out at a out at a party or dungeon that is not a private play party. Although you need to negotiate your scene. You always need to negotiate your scenes, but like, because that's part of what makes it safe and safer sex, safer kink, just risk mitigation. That's what it makes it safer play versus abuse. If you just hit someone, that's assault. If you have a conversation and say, hey, we're gonna do this thing for 10 to 40 minutes, and these are all the things that could happen, and these are all the things that are definitely not going to happen. Those are your wants, and those are your limits. What you want to happen, all of it might not happen, but all of it is on the table. And then hard limits are things you absolutely won't do. Soft limits are things that need to be negotiated. So for me, hard limits are, I don't take impact on my arms. You shouldn't be hitting my arms anyway, but I'm disabled. I can't be restrained in certain ways. but it's a soft limit for restraint on my arms because there are positions in which I can do bondage that are comfortable for me with my disability. It's the same thing as like if you get into a fight, it's not consensual and it's assault. If you go to a wrestling match, you have agreed to the rules and how you're going to operate. But if you're doing a kinky scene, you are negotiating at the start of the scene to make sure you're both working off the same playbook, the same rule book.
I like the tasters. It sounds like a sampler platter kind of.
It is
feels like you're going
exactly
to
that.
Costco and you're just trying a little bit of it's and making it's kind of seeing what you're into. It's a little like
Exactly.
it's a taste test, right?
Mhm.
I like
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
munchers,
Munch
munchies.
a munch.
Oh, a
I
munch.
don't know why we have this. I don't like this word. I feel about this word the way people feel about the word moist, but it's okay. A munch is a purely social event that is not play-based. So it's just a hangout with no play and no sex. You just munch on food. Real food.
Because
I know.
it sounds it doesn't sound like that if you know what I mean. Like I
I
mean
know.
I just think carpet muncher. That's all I can, that's all I hear. I mean, that is my brain is from the 1900s. I must remind you yet again. So these were the terms that we
You
used.
dirty old man.
I'm dirty old. My name is Jethro, and I'm a dirty old man, and no, but okay, no, this is good. I like a glossary of terms is important, as somebody who wants to understand all the things. But yeah, so yeah, because I know that I opened for 2 orgies. I did comedy for 2 orgies at Burning Man. I think you know this. Maybe you don't.
No,
But
I didn't. That's
yeah,
amazing. I love you.
know. It's the dumbest thing ever. Like it was 2023 and the theme of it was the same year as the 30-foot tall. It was called the clitoris was called Tip of the Iceberg. The 30-foot tall clit was there that year, but the theme was Animalia. And my gift to that year at Playa was I'm going to do animal talks. And so a wonderful friend of a friend who I'm now good friends with asked me to give a talk, and their group name was called the Bonobos, and they're based up in the Bay, but I think they have groups here in LA. And I was like, perfect. I just did this great talk on bonobos. So I did this bonobo comedy routine for this orgy and play party. And but they had I actually really did love their consent talk, because their consent talk didn't just address touch and play, but it also addressed watching, like soft eyes versus hard eyes, which like, soft eyes would be like glancing around the room. Hard eyes are like, yeah, just like that. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
slower, a little.
A lot of dungeons have rules about voyeurism in that way, especially if you are doing a scene that actually includes like intercourse. You have to check in with the DM, like if you want to have somebody watching you, like that counts as being part of the scene, like because it is like watching is part of it, and I really like how granular and nuanced the concept of consent is in these spaces, whether it's play parties or dungeons or orgies. I like that soft eyes versus hard eyes too.
Yeah, because I know that there's a lot of people that don't want that, and I joke, when I studied monkeys, I was like, I've been given hard eyes at my poor informants all these years. Those monkeys didn't. I don't know if they wanted it. I don't know. I have no idea. Here I am just taking notes, filming them without explicit
It's hard to establish consent in a scientific observational context, as I don't know.
It is. I know, right? I know. But in that particular, those play parties, the first one I was coupled up. I had a partner back at home and we weren't open. And so I ended up staying for 6 hours the whole time. And I did not partake, but people kept asking me questions and they wanted to massage me. And I was, you know what I mean? And it was kind of a very non-sexual, but I felt very included, and it was so lovely. And it was one of those moments where, I had not really, I'd been to play parties in the past, but that didn't have such strict parameters. And I really loved that this one did. And, the next year I ended
so much more comfortable because you know what to expect. And it makes it easier, I think, to engage in all kinds of touch when you know that it's not gonna be just assumed that you're consenting to more, because
Right.
the dominant narrative around sex is that it just like happens and naturally just like escalates and you don't have to talk about it. And it is awkward to start like to learn to like talk about it, but like you can turn your consent check-ins into dirty talk. It's so easy. Like, oh my God, it feels so good when you put your hand there. I want to feel your fingers.
Right
Sense.
there.
Yeah,
Insert
like, oh my
place.
God,
Yeah.
that's so hot, baby. Please do that. Oh my God, more. Like, um, and it's just the way purity culture and just like American culture, like in general, but it's worse when you come from religious purity culture. It equates any type of like physical touch as potentially the slippery slope that's gonna push you over the edge, and like you're gonna end up having sex. Which, when people from purity culture do first have sex, they generally don't use protection, because
Oh, no.
you i- if you get carried away, you feel less culpable for making the decision. And
I
if you
see.
take the time to stop and use protection, well, then it's a premeditated sin.
Ah, I see. Okay. Yep.
Mhm, yeah,
Yeah.
no, sex ed
That's
is terrible. And this is true of
God.
like for abstinence only in general, but especially if you think you're gonna go to hell about it.
Right. Well, again, growing up in the 1900s, in the late 80s, in the early 90s, like that's when I started getting sex ed. The way and I went to Presbyterian school, it was during the HIV epidemic, and so what they did is they basically told us, if you have sex, this will happen. You will get, and chlamydia, HIV. Well, HPV wasn't a thing at that point. I mean, it was a thing, but it wasn't a thing. But we were I remember my high school, or not even high school, my sixth grade boyfriend, we were boyfriend and girlfriend for 24 hours, Justin Miller. And, yeah, we've known each other since we were in preschool. So it was like, we woke up the next day and we're like, oh, this is gross. You're like my brother. You're like my sister. But I remember we'd hold hands and we discussed, if and when we choose to have sexual intercourse, we are going to use condoms with non-oxynol 9. Which was
What?
supposed to, like, it's a
Is that the
spermicide.
spermicide?
Yeah, it's a spermicide that's supposed to kill HIV. But because we were 12 and had so much sex ed pounded into our little skulls, that if you do have sex, you will get HIV and die, because this is, again, parochial school, early 90s, that was their way of enforcing purity culture, or at least scaring us to not want to have the sex. And so, but it was, again, it was good, at least, that we were mindful of these things, but not in a way that it made us want to never ever do it, because we were going to die, immediately.
Yeah, which is, I mean, it's probably that is probably so much of the reason that like vaginismus is such a high incidence in purity culture and religious women. Like, it's
That's
just, you got
crazy.
all these messages and your body is keeping the score, and like even if it's subconscious, like it's still wicked in there. And so like sexual dysfunction is very high in post purity and purity culture, folks. But where were we? We were talking about
We're talking about
dungeons and
kink, and I
kinks.
want to, yeah. So you dip in your toe, like, so you kind of got into it by, going to the munches, because I stopped and had you explain. So as you were getting into, yeah. So tell me more about the munches, and then how you kind of, now you help teach people how to get into it. So how did that transition happen?
It really dovetailed with my intimacy, coaching, taking off a bit. So I do sex, relationship, and intimacy coaching, just anything around those, both monogamy and polygamy. Polygamy, no, both monogamy and polyamorous. Wow, let's just
It's deep. It's deep. We can't help it,
oh god. Both for like monogamous frameworks and polyamorous frameworks. It's Los Angeles. A lot of people are poly here. And it just kind of like, as I was getting more into the dungeon scene, this part of my career was taking off, because prior to this I actually worked a corporate job, but I became disabled and needed to transition careers. So over the past several years, that's kind of what I've been focusing on. And this is definitely very much what's in my soul and wants to get out. Especially like when I was thinking about doing this, I was speaking with someone and they're like, well, like, what's your why? And I hadn't really asked myself that before. And it just, the switch flipped and my brain was like, I want to help other people heal and recover from purity culture. There's there's so many knots to untangle, and it is doable. And I've gone through it and I've studied it, and I want to help other people because it just is, no one deserves a dysfunctional sex life or a dysfunctional relationship with their sexuality. But how I got into, like, from just like being in the dungeon scene to like educating about it is I just kind of started talking about it more with more people. Like, my friends would come to me if they were curious about exploring kink, because I am an open person, and I, like you said, like, I just am willing to talk about sex, sexuality, sexploration, etc., because it just needs to be talked about more. And I just feel very confident in my identity around all of those things now. And I, want to share that with whoever is in a place where they want to explore sexually, relationally, theologically, even. I'm not a theologian, but
I do have a question about I do have a question about those that are either leaving the purity culture and the church, or just maybe the purity culture. Kinks involving Jesus. I mean,
I put on a nun costume for the first time a few months ago, and I was like, I didn't think this was gonna do something for me, but apparently it is.
Tell me more. Really? Okay.
Yeah, I was surprising someone who I knew was into nuns and didn't know I had this, because I didn't at the time that they told me they were into nuns, and we were going to an event called Slut Church. And I was like, oh, nuns is allowed as a dress code? Bet. I'm going to go to the Halloween town over in Burbank. I'm going to find me
I live down the street. We should meet there sometime.
We should. It's the
season.
It's
fun. It's the
It is.
season.
I love Halloween shopping. There's a creepy Halloween where the original Joanne was in Burbank now. Here in NoHo.
Oh no, that's
It's
so
not even a
sad.
spirit Halloween. They couldn't even have the decency to give it a spirit Halloween. It's a creepy Halloween.
Damn it.
But
But anyways,
yeah,
so you went, you came to this gentleman's place as a nun, and how did that go?
the neighbor yells at us for being too loud at 4:30 in the morning.
So you're saying it was a roaring success?
So yeah, no, like, there's definitely, I don't really do a lot of like religious play, but like I've been trying to get one of my local dungeons. I'm like, we need to do an Angels and Demons, Saints and Sinners night. Like, bro, put me in, please, coach. Like, cause yeah, like, ritual, like, there's a flavor, like, I definitely have a priest kink. I wasn't even Catholic, like,
Oh
but
wow.
and this, I discovered this in two ways. One, I mean, both of these are fanfic based ways, because erotica is one of the best way to explore fantasies. You have basically a container, similar to the way like the kink container works as like a container for fantasy. The book is a container for fantasy, and like there's an author on Threads, always be booked, BEE, who was talking about basically the book itself, and the act of reading is basically an implicit consent between the reader and the author, like understanding like, this is a fantasy. I can open this, I can read it, I can put it down, I can close it whenever I want. You can open and close the container. Same with BDSM or kinky play. It's a container, it's negotiated. You can stop, renegotiate at anything at any time, because you are ultimately a sovereign human. And that's true for all kink relationships, including like 24/7 or like total power exchange. Like, you are still a sovereign human at the end of the day, and you're building something that works for both of you. You're building a structure. Anyway, you're building a game together, a structure. Anyway, in reading, I was reading Matt Murdock, like Daredevil fan fiction, and there's so much like priest Matt Murdock fan fiction. And there's also a lot of like Obi-Wan, Jedi, like, because the Jedi have a similar like asceticism thing. And so like there's that like forbidden fruit vibe. Like, it would be, I feel like, very fun to play with like a scene that is like more like in that type of role play, but I have not done that. It's one of those areas that I'm like, this is an interesting fantasy. I don't know if I wanted to just like stay in here or bring it out here. and that's something that Justin talks about in like Tell Me What You Want, is like sometimes your fantasies are like sometimes you want to bring them into fruition in the real world and sometimes you don't, and it's really either way is fine. Because either way, like you're just enjoying a pleasurable fantasy, whether or not it's just mental or ends up being physical. But
Absolutely.
yeah.
I feel like, yeah, I think fantasy is interesting that way because I know that having talked to a lot of people, just even in those 2 nights at the play party, just like just about their fantasies and whether or not they wanted to live out all of them. Sometimes it was enough just in the moment, whether it was, like pleasuring themselves or just like dirty talk with their partner, that was enough. Like actually going the distance was like, I don't need to do that. You know what I mean? It's just like it's something that kind of gets you to the finish line rather than like must do the thing. So I think that's
Mhm.
also an interesting part of human sexuality is sometimes it's just like this is just part of the spank bank rather than need to
Yeah.
happen situation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any more glossary terms that you
Oh
need
my god.
defined?
Well, at that that's the thing is I might not even know if I need glossary terms defined. I mean, uh, like I guess these are terms that I know, but maybe it would be best if you could like a dom versus a sub.
Okay. Yeah, so in in BDSM, the D and the S, because it's a multi-part acronym, stands for dominance and submission. And sometimes these terms are interchangeable with top and bottom, the person directing or giving action and the person taking or receiving it. You can totally have like you can like top from the bottom, or like you can be like a bratty sub, or like um you can kind of like play with these, but generally speaking, you're both co-equal people like creating an experience, and you agree that for the scene or for the dynamic in certain like parts of your life, if you're having like an ongoing dynamic relationship with with your partner, that person is taking the lead, um, making decisions, directing the action, deciding what's going on, being more of like the pursuer or the aggressor or the active, um, more active like partner. Active is not the best word, but and then the submissive partner is yielding responsibility, yielding decision making power, yielding autonomy for the duration of that container or for whatever part of that like ongoing dynamic that they have. And I lean more towards the submissive side because I really like to relax and get my brain turned off. um it's and like it's kind of like similar to like the Kinsey scale of sexuality, or the Kinsey scale, where it's fully homosexual, fully hetero, like, and then bi in the middle, like kind of like that between dominance, switching, and submission. A switch is someone who has both or is like a little more like to one side, basically. Um, some people are just purely like only ever want a dom or top. Some people only ever want a sub or bottom. Some people it's situational. Um, I don't really like enjoy doming a ton. I am learning how to flog though because it's really fun. Like as a
Congratulations.
top, thank you. You want to see my floggers?
Yes, show and tell.
Oh yes, I pulled these out just before. So
Okay.
someone got me these from DomCon.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. What's its name? Does it have a name?
These don't have names, but I do have
Ooh.
there's someone in my sphere he's named his floggers Hillary Clinton and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. These ones don't have names. They are leather. Someone
Wow.
got them to me at DomCon. They're a little bit, they're kind of in between the stingy and thuddy. They're not super heavy, which is good for me because I have chronic hand pain, and that's something that I let every partner know, whether I'm subbing or topping. But if I am topping, if I am like doming and I'm delivering any kind of impact or anything involving my hands, I'm like, so part of my aftercare is that you're going to need to massage my arms if I'm spanking you or
Aw.
flogging you or anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, one of my partners is an impact top, and so I've been learning how to flog.
Oh, wow. Dear God. I have it's back there. I have a writing crop. somewhere.
Oh, I need to get one of those. Those are so fun.
It is fun. It is. I mean, I've had that thing. My mom has given it, like, actually that and the bitch collar. It's ended up in my mom's garage a few times, and she's just like, "Will you please take your bitch collar home with you?" Uh I bought the fun fact, I did buy this for a movie I was working on. Not that kind of movie. I swear. It was called Hollywood 5. And we shot it it used to be called Sunset 5. Now it's the Lemley. I don't even know what it is. It's not even a Lemley, is it? It might be an ArcLight movie theater, the one at like Crescent Heights and Sunset. But I shot, it was all night shoots, and I had to make fake shit 3 different times during that film, and I had to make fake pee the color that your pee turns when you're on medication for chlamydia. Like, it was the weirdest film. But there was a character I had to buy this bitch color for, and but then I've worn it a gazillion times. But yeah, but the riding crop is fantastic. I've used it in burlesque now. I did a velociraptor routine last year. I'm doing it one tomorrow night too. But
Is that what you were in the dance studio for last night with the velociraptor selfie you sent me?
Yeah, that was this morning. I'm doing the Mesozoic extinction, the KT event, basically the asteroid hitting Earth, and it's a routine with the velociraptor and the asteroid dancing it out. It's very poetic, but I haven't worked in the riding crop. But point being, it is fun. It is a fun thing to do. I have a hard time. I used to kickbox, and I have a hard time hurting people because I used to fight, and I was good. And I would hurt people sometimes, and I hated it. I hated it so much. Like, we'd have to kneel down, or I'd have to kneel, and then the other person would have to be like, "Am I okay?" And I was like, "Oh my God." So to accidentally or intentionally hurt somebody is tough. But I don't know. I mean, if they wanted it, maybe, I don't know.
It's different when you have someone actively telling you that they want it. And also, like, you can and should fine tune how much pain you want delivered. I'm not really a pain slut. I like impact play, and I like I like an edge. And something that's probably still a little bit niche knowledge is that, like, the same circuits in your brain, like your pain and pleasure centers, are essentially like right on top of each other. So when you are getting pain and pleasure at the same time, it creates this like overload loop that just elevates and releases like all these endorphins, which is typically what puts people into what we call subspace, which is an altered state of mind where you're just full of happy chemicals, and you're like, I just get like this. I'm like, happy.
Okay,
I have no thoughts, head empty, only sensation. And it's like different for other people. Like, there's dom space, there's subspace, but like when you're negotiating, and like when I'm negotiating with someone I haven't played with before, I will say I like impact play. I like it a little bit more stingy, but like I'm probably like a 4 out of 10. Like, everyone's have a different like pain scale. And so what I'll usually say is, like, let's start low, and I'll tell you, like, to go up.
Yeah, you can always build.
Yeah, and there's a what's called, under the umbrella of safe words, there's a traffic light system of green, yellow, and red, which is pretty self-explanatory. Green means, like, we are good to go. I don't have any problems with what's going on. So, like, if your dom checks in on you, like, color, you're green. Okay, everything is good. Yellow. Okay, let's pause. What's not working in the scene? Is it too hard? Is it not hard enough? Like, do you want more of a certain something? Like, the way one of my friends expresses it is that being a dominant is being a fantasy facilitator, because like, it is about learning what your partner, whether it's a scene partner or relationship partner, like, is into, and helping craft that together for them. And it's a collaborative process. It's like dancing. The leader is not in charge of the dance in the same way the follower is not just taking like his action. They are their action. It's not all leads are men. It's a collaborative process. So sex and kink and dancing, they're all collaborative processes. And so, like, you can fine tune how much pain you're getting. So if someone is, if you're placing an order, it's like placing an order for a steak. Like, do you want it rare, medium, or well done? Because you're absolutely within your rights, and you are supposed to. Let me get my camera back in focus.
I know. I was like, there we go.
Girl, what? I will eventually fix this camera. Do you need me to just?
Anyway, is it a webcam? Yeah.
cam. It's a Razer like HD fancy biatch. Do you want more light on my face? Is that what you want? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, what do you want, honey? I know.
It's
Does she
tiny,
want to be flogged? Should you flog her?
I'll
Maybe
try.
she needs flogging.
I'm
Maybe
gonna knock it
that's
off. Knock off the camera.
flogging does rhyme with vlogging, so I don't know. Yeah, right, exactly.
If I had a little riding crop, I would just smack her. She's bratting at me, need to be pulled back in line. But yeah, like if you don't like the idea of giving someone pain, like you don't have to. You can totally use a riding crop in a way that is not painful at all. You
I
can
mean,
tease someone.
I'm not totally adverse. I'm just, it's just, we'll see. I mean, the night is young. No, but I definitely, doming is tough because I'm just nice. You know what I mean?
Okay, that's what actually brings me to what I was about to like realize. Like, I need to say this. There are a lot of different flavors of dominance, actually, and they range from like soft to hard, like soft doming, goddess doming, mommy doming, daddy doming. You can be like more discipline based of a dom. You can be more like master based, like high protocol, sadistic doming. Like there is a whole spectrum. So Anton Fullman wrote a really great book, The Heart of Dominance.
Heart of Dominance. I'm writing this
down. Yeah, and he actually breaks dominance down into 6 categories. I was just looking at this, actually. I actually have like a hard copy of this book somewhere in this room.
Of course it's hard. Sorry. Pardon me.
I'm going to just look in the table of contents from this book. Because I liked the way that he did that. Okay, if I look at the table of contents, okay. 6 flavors of dominance. Control, so that'd be like protocol. Conquest, service, devaluation, so this is going to be like more humiliation, degradation. Nurture, daddy and mommy doms, and objectification.
Okay.
And that's a super good book. And I wish it was within eyesight so I could just grab it, show it to you. But it's hiding on my phone.
I wrote a note though. I need to. I mean, I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, to me, it's very interesting.
It's a good
all
book.
Sex is interesting to me. I mean, it's animal sex, human sex. It's something that without it, our species just dies out, right? You know. But not all sex does not lead to that, which is also, I think, fascinating, and all the ways we do it, and all. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, The Heart of Dominance by Anton Fullman is a fantastic read, whether or not you identify as a dom, because he goes into the nature of the power exchange in a way that is really accessible, I think, for anyone on either side of the slash. And as a responsible submissive, I think it's a good idea to learn about dominance, even if like you don't feel dominant, because the main like perception of a dominant is unfortunately Christian Grey, or if you're a more refined adult, secretary. So the original.
Yes. Oh my God. Oh.
James Spader.
It's James Spader. Now, as a person from the 1900s, I saw him in films in the 1980s, and he was a piece. He was a piece back then. But yeah, I mean, but those films, by the way. Oh, and Secretary was so good. But the films back in the 80s, too, also set up this really bad just idea that sex, or saying, no means yes type of thing. We saw that quite a bit in those movies. That's why things like Secretary are so good to see, dominance done a little bit better than, say, 50 Shades of Grey, which is not the way. There are some, like
we were watching and we were talking, we're like, okay, like they are sitting down to negotiate. They're sitting down to negotiate a contract between an experienced dominant and someone who is a virgin, which you should not do. Contracts are for people who are experienced enough in the lifestyle that we both have a very, very clear idea of what they want, and they want to put it like in a written agreement so that they know like all the nuances of like what they're doing. It's usually like a much more serious thing. You would not do that with a newbie. You would maybe take her to a munch. You would maybe take her to a dungeon. Like if like I was friends with Anna, I'd be like, oh, okay, let's go to like a taster party, baby. Like let's find out what you actually want, instead of you just having sex for the first time and like just getting like from the fire hose.
That's so crazy. I mean, yeah, no.
It was hot though. Like we can watch it sometime. We'll roast it together.
I've never seen it. I tried to read it and I couldn't. I got in maybe 10, 15 pages and I was like, this is
It's so
terrible.
badly written. It's
It's
so
so
badly written.
bad.
It's painful. Like I read a lot of
know.
fanfic. I've read and like that was originally Twilight fanfic, and I'm like I have read stuff, probably written stuff that's better. I only have one published fanfic because I don't like to write. It's very difficult. I can write normal, I can't write fiction. But like actually, when 50 Shades was coming out, this is how one of the other entrees into kink for me was this book series called The Boss by Abigail Barnett, because she was like sporking, which is like doing a chapter by chapter roasting of a book. She was sporking all of 50 Shades, and so I was like, you think you could do better? And she was like, bitch, the fuck I can. Watch, like, and so she wrote The Boss, and there's like a 7-book series. Her writing's really good, and there's an homage to the copper tub from the end of Secretary in it, which is how you know she's legit.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm gonna put that down. The Boss.
Yeah, The Boss, a kinky billionaire romance series that is consent based and has well written spice scenes.
I like that. Yes.
I do too. I've read
I'm
it several times. It was actually the
Okay.
first romance series I bought because I'm like, well, I can just read for free on Archive of Our Own. Let me try this. Oh, wait, okay.
I want this person to have some money. Yeah, take some.
Abigail Barnett, buy her books. They're
Abigail,
fantastic.
yes, exactly. No, and you're working on a book right now. You mentioned it before, so that's in the works right now.
Yeah, I'm in the building my research survey phase. So it's going to take a couple years to get the research done and like write the book. I am aiming to traditionally publish this book instead of self-publish, which I know is very difficult for a debut author. But everywhere I've talked about this book, the reception has been like, holy shit, we need that. No one's ever done that. Like I talked about this at Kink Fest in a workshop I attended actually on consensual non-consent. We were talking about some of the background, like I'd ask the question, I mentioned this, and everybody, like, I'm not joking, like people started clapping. I was like, okay, well, this is my audience. So yes, so I'll be doing research over the next year, and there's a page on my website that I'm currently reworking about like what the book is, what the research will be like, how it's going to be approached, because I'm working with an associate who does research professionally, because I would like the research findings to be robust and quantitative as much as possible so that we can draw out the themes. But it is about, my working title is Good Christian Girl, but with Christian X'd out. And it's basically exploring like how people heal from purity culture through kink. And it's important to always assert, like, kink is not trauma based. However, like a lot of things, it has a lot of therapeutic potential. There's another book in the works by Nicole Double L on Instagram is writing about it as like its therapeutic potential for like trauma therapy intervention, because she's both, I believe, a pro-dom. She's a pro-dom and a licensed therapist, which is awesome. And that book comes out next year, and I can't wait to read it and absorb it and reference it. So yeah, that's the book that I'm working on, because I've had so many post-purity friends just also be in this world, and it's interesting hearing about how they came to it and like what appealed to them about it and like which different flavors they're into. So I'm really excited to learn about and talk with more folks, because it's going to be survey as well as like some interviews, because like storytelling is such a big part of this. Hello. Oh my God.
The camera is just like trying to.
I'm gonna I need to give your YouTube audience some Dramamine. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. No, it's high drama. I like it. It's kind of, we'll work with it.
So that book, I've got a page for it on my website, which is intimacylacey.com. And then I'm at intimacylacey on Instagram and TikTok. For coaching, I do free consult calls. So if it's something that, like, if you are dealing with some of the fallouts of purity culture, or maybe just kind of realize like that's what you were in, I am free to talk to for 15 or so minutes at a time for consults. And with a consult, it's an opportunity to basically get to know like what's going on between, like what a potential client is going on, and like whether you feel like I would be a good fit to work with. And I do have other folks that I refer to, both coaches and therapists, because, if there is something going on that is outside my scope as a coach, I am a huge proponent of therapy, having gone to it a lot myself. And I have a lot of associates who are like licensed and board certified sex therapists, which is awesome. Like, sex therapists rule. I have a friend from Biola who became a sex therapist and has been like a really great
Wow.
supporter on my journey. Thank you, Crystal. I love you.
Go Crystal. Uh, I usually ask people on this show, what's the filthiest thing you've done in the name of science, or say in your case, social science? Because I mean, this is science.
I don't know if I can say it on national television.
Oh, we're not that big yet, baby.
Let's see.
But no pressure. This is a very, consent-based show. You can do it.
Yeah, I'm like going through the Rolodex.
Right.
I can tell you a really wholesome, filthy thing I did.
Absolutely. And I should have prefaced, it doesn't have to be sex related. It could be something like I've had people, obviously if they're studying animals, it's like I have traveled with 5 canisters of shit, through TS, whatever. It doesn't have to be, I had 5 penises in my ears, whatever. You know what I mean?
Oh God, the dream. How did you find my dream journal, Natalia?
Did I tell you I'm a clairvoyant? Exactly.
One of my party tricks is my first job I worked at Ren Fair. I worked at the hair braiding booth, and so I'm really good at braiding hair. And I basically did this hair bondage scene, which normally when someone says hair bondage, they're talking about like tying ropes around a ponytail and like that type of thing. I randomly got this idea because like these 2 people that I was hanging out with in a play context they both had really long, beautiful hair. And I was like, and I have usually really long, sharp nails. They're just broken right now because it's been hot. And I was like, can I braid your hair together and just like lightly scritch the both of you with my nails? And they're like, yes, that sounds amazing. So they like just kind of like lounged on each other. And I started a 5-strand braid because that's my party trick. It's not just 3, it's 5. And I braided their hair into her hair, and it was just like long. And then they were just stuck together like that. And then I just gave them like all these long scritches. And she had a like a skin condition like autographia or something, like where like stuff will show up and stay on the skin for a while. So that was really cool because you could see all the little marks. Because like I'm a very soft dom, apparently. Like that's doming. I was in charge of that scene. We negotiated. I was like, I have this idea. Let's co-create this together. Are you guys into this? And I really want to do it again with someone because it was really nice. It was just this container of like trust and sensation.
That is amazing. No, that you just described my dream because I love my hair played with and scratches. Like that right there that is the dream. That is amazing. But I get what you mean though. Like that's the soft dom. You did take control, but in a very soothing way, and that's a great example of how being dommed, being the sub can be. I would be are you kidding? I'd fall asleep, but like in a nice way, not like a rude like I'm bored. It's more like this is the most amazing thing ever. That's really sweet. And this was not at the Ren Fair though. This was just a trick you learned.
Yeah, no, this was not at the Ren Fair. I learned to do 5-strand braids working at Fair.
Mhm.
And in the intervening like decade and a half, I've just like made it my party trick. I'm like, oh, you like your hair? You have long hair? Can I braid it? And then they're like, oh my God, I look like a Viking. Amazing, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yes, I know.
I want you to make me look like a Viking.
I can do that.
Okay. Okay. Next time I see you. That's so sweet. I love that. I used to go to like my best friend who I think is watching. If Ellen is watching, Ellen made a joke because she knows about the steamy sex novels, and she just wrote yes, Lake Tahoe, because she knows. But we used to go to the Ren Fair.
Did you know I'm from Tahoe?
Are you from Tahoe? Like South Lake?
Not from at the lake, but in one of like I'm from Carson Valley.
Oh my God, that's crazy. That's wild.
I'm up there a lot.
Perhaps this was about you, Lacey. Perhaps
Maybe it was.
this
Was her
was
hair
about
blue?
Yeah, I mean, I have to go back and let my mom threw it away. That's rude. Um, that's really good. I have good friends up in South Lake, so that's why. Yeah, I mean, now back then I had never been there. I thought it sounded exotic. I thought it sounded sexy.
It is. I
Um,
mean, I'm sure you've been there now.
oh yeah,
It's very alpine and gorgeous, and like
gorgeous.
I'm sure there's a bearskin rug somewhere we could find.
They're probably I know people. I know people. Although I wouldn't want it to be real bearskin. I'd be like, no, can we just have it be synthetic? Um,
Oh no. Oh, sorry. Just the feeling of
I
it would
know.
just trap so much heat and moisture. I'm overthinking this.
I'm sweating just thinking about it. But Ellen, who's watching, I think we used to go to the Renaissance Fair, and again, this is in the 90s. This is the early 90s. There was the kissing bridge.
Oh
And I don't
yeah.
think it's there anymore because I think
No.
it violates I mean, I was kissing people that I should not have been kissing. People that were old, like old people. Not I
And
mean,
this is why American adults have a 90% HSV1 positivity rate.
basically, and also like this is a little PSA, HSV1 and HSV2, herpes simplex 1 and 2 can be either place. You know what I mean? So that's also
And
something
they're
good to
super
know too.
common and super
Super
treatable and
common, yeah.
not
And a
that
lot of
big a deal.
people
Get tested, disclose your status.
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, a lot of people a lot of doctors won't even test unless you have an outbreak because you can get a false positive too, which is
I
also
had to demand to be tested for it when I wanted
yeah,
to like get the full. I'm like, no, I want the full with everything. They're like, everything. I'm like, yeah, include herpes, please. Like, I need to know.
yeah. But yeah, the kissing bridge though was a thing for I mean,
Yeah.
it was why I mean, I have picture it was bad news bears, but yeah, Renaissance Fair. We'll have to go next year. I'm gonna save my dollars and we're gonna have to, get into some trouble, braid some hair and whatnot.
Get
Um
comp ticket for Natalia for
Oh,
Fair.
yeah. I was gonna try to go this year, but I was like it was the last weekend or something very silly, and I was like, "Hey, can I get a ticket this week?" Because again, my best friend Ellen, who you need to meet, you would absolutely love her. We was gonna do it for her birthday because her birthday's in May. The camera wants you to be so mysterious.
It's
Um,
a problem. I gotta figure it out.
I know, and we've been on for a while. I feel so bad. This has got oh my god, it's over 2 hours. Sweet purple
I
Jesus.
know we need to wrap.
We need to wrap this up.
Anyone still here? Hi, thank you.
Exactly. Thank you. If you're still watching, we'll give you a medal. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. So, last any parting words and where can people, I mean, I know people know where to find you because Peter's been putting it in the chat, but if you have any last things, any things coming up, you let me know. The camera's like, get the fuck off.
I know. Intimacylacy.com is my website. I have a big book your free consult button. I'm also super available on Instagram and somewhat available on TikTok. And I'm working on more content in the next couple of months. And I love like questions to make content out of as well. So that's where you can find me. And I'll also be on the Chapel Probation podcast coming up at some point in the next couple of weeks.
Woo. Okay.
And Divorcing Religion soon as well.
Wow. You get busy.
Little
gal.
podcast tour, a little busy little bee this summer.
That's good. That's got to get it out there.
I love podcasts so much. I just started going on them, I guess.
You should. And if anybody is watching or seeing this after the fact, you want to reach out to Lacey to be on your podcast, do it. Because clearly has a lot to say and a lot of important things to share. So, and if you need a coach to help you through the kink world or leaving the purity culture, again, all the endorsement. Yeah. Okay. Lacey Bond, my dear Lacey, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being here. And
Thank you for having me.
Oh my God.
I love you too.
And to folks at home, thank you for watching. I want to thank my producer, Peter DeTucker. You are a dreamboat in the Netherlands, and I hope one day to actually meet you in person because this is silly that we've worked for so long and I've never met you. And for people at home, please like, subscribe, share, put comments down because I will share them with Lacey. I'm sure she'll check back and see. Yeah, and if you want to support this elaborate production, please consider joining my Patreon. I also am going to be doing other SciComm videos and things of that sort. I want to get back into making more of them. I kind of took some time because life has been crazy of late. And I have to thank my amazing Patreon patrons. Where's my list? Thank you so much. Okay, everybody. My patrons include Daniel Wynn, Claude Allen, Tom Skullbeard, Tori Yates Orr, Redding Maley, Dana Logan, Michael Z. Weinstock, David Leitner, James Hudspeth, Anthony Zana, Tom Berman, Jen Beverstock, Scott Froschauer, that means frog beater, JSB, Jeff Cohen, Andrea Bloom, Jonathan Marks, Kelly Frazier, Michael Clanton, PJ Shapiro, Carrie Dorr, and we have a new one this week, Raphael. Thank you so much for joining my Patreon. I love you guys. And until next time, and there will be a show next time. I'm just figuring out guests. So check my Instagram. But until next time, stay filthy.